All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We have 30 minutes with Jackie, and I want to make sure we make the most of it. So Jackie today will be teaching getting listings under contract and the psychology of sellers. And thank you so much again for your time, Jackie.
Well, you guys are so welcome, and I just love that you absolutely thought of me, and so that always just tickles me to death when somebody gives me a call and asks me to do something like this. So most of you who I've met before may know that this is, I'm one of the people that have, real estate agents that have been around a very long time, 31, almost 32 years selling real estate full-time and always as a listing agent. So obviously by taking so many listings and working with so many sellers directly, I've learned a little about them, and I've learned to appreciate the psychology and the steps and the phases that a seller goes through during either the term of a listing or even up until the point where they're deciding to list. And so I want to share this with you because you're going to probably recognize this in some of your sellers. And yes, it's more true now than ever with all some of the changes that our world is experiencing, but it's also timeless. It's been this way forever, and forever and ever it will still remain this way. So you guys have all heard, when we lose someone that we love, or even an animal that we love, that we go through the 5 stages of grief. Tell me, you shake your head if you've heard about the 5 stages of grief. Okay, well, they're actually not just stages of grief, they're stages of loss, any loss at all. So a loss of a relationship, for example, or a loss of funds. If you've lost money, or, you know, and you're, for instance, you're not getting as much as you thought for your home that you're selling, or the loss of how you normally live your life, which a lot of us are going through. But right now, I want to talk about the 5 stages of loss that your sellers are experiencing. And I want to teach you how to recognize each one, and to keep your emotions out of it, and just, you know, listen and recognize where they are in each stage. So for instance, when you first approach a seller, and it does not matter what market we're in, if it's a seller's market and things are flying off the shelf, multiple offer situations, that it doesn't matter. Sellers usually, and tell me if you agree with this, they usually feel their home is worth more than it is. Even in a market like this, they think, oh my gosh, it's a hot market, multiple offers. I see the guy across the street sold in 2 hours, had a ton of offers. My house is going to be worth this much. And even though it's top dollar right now that our sellers are receiving, they still think it's worth more. So they're in a stage of denial, which is the first step of the first stage of any sort of loss. And denial sounds like, well, put my house on the market for this price, and if it doesn't sell, we can always adjust it. And I know you've heard that from a seller many, many times. And so that's just a form of denial. Even if you have put the house on the market at the price that they suggested, and 2 to 3 weeks later you're calling to say, hey, maybe it's time we adjust the price, they're like, well, you know, we've had a lot of showings, and, you know, let's just keep it on another week or 2. So they're still in this stage of denial. And the bad news about this one stage of denial is that it does last a long time. Most of the time, denial is the longest stage somebody's in. So unfortunately, you may have to help coach them through this denial. When I hear it at a listing table, I don't pack my bags and leave so quick. I actually work with them and say, you know, I know you wanted to hear this amount. My job is to bring you top dollar. That's why you hire someone like me. And what I have in front of you, the expense sheet in front of you, showing you your expenses and what you can expect to receive at closing, is top dollar. So I want us to really look at this number and reconsider. So just be patient, knowing that they're in this denial stage, and help every week, twice a week, call them and say, Liz, maybe it's time we now adjust your price. Help them get out of it. Once they get out of denial, unfortunately, they are jumping right into the second stage, which is anger. Now, anger is not a lot of fun because guess who they're usually angry at? Most of the time it's us, not always. Sometimes it could be the market that they bought the house in. They feel they overpaid. It could be about the market that they now have to enter as a buyer. Oh my gosh, I'm not, I can't get what I want on the other end. Things are so pricey and they're flying off the shelf. But anger, for the most part, is directed at us. And it sounds like, well, you haven't even shown my property. Your company hasn't shown my property. I've had all these other agents. And, by the way, they're leaving the sliding glass doors open and they're leaving the lights on. And, they didn't even show up. 2 of them didn't even show up last week. So anger can really sound angry. Now, there is good news about anger. They don't stay there long. They just need to get it off their chest. Don't go into defense mode. Just be the listener. Use the 2 magic words in the English language, which is, I understand. I understand. So the good news about anger is that it's not going to long, and sometimes it's automatically combined with the next phase, which is bargaining. So what I mean is they could be angry at you during the same conversation and say, well, if bargaining might sound like, if I have to adjust my price or reduce my price, then I want you to reduce yours. And now this is when what are you going to do for me? This is when most agents cave in and start to throw money at the problem. And I don't want you to do that, because I want you to recognize that this is just one of those phases of loss. They're now adjusting the price on their property, which means they're going to walk away with less money, which means they can buy less of a property out there. And so they're feeling some sort of a loss, and it's coming out that way. So if somebody says, oh, what will you do for me? Will you reduce your price? Say, I'm asked that all the time. I understand the question. I appreciate you asking me. However, let's just focus on this bottom line. And remember, if you should be getting a mortgage when you're out to buy, when we go out looking for that next home for you, the interest rates are so amazing right now that you're going to more than make up for this 10 times. So get them off of that. Focus them on the bottom line. Don't start talking about your money. Nobody has the right to talk to you about your money. I just want you to know that. Okay. Now, anger and bargaining are usually combined in the same conversation. Not always, but usually. And what's the next phase? It's sadness. And sadness comes up a couple of different ways. Sadness can just sound sad. It can, oh my gosh, this is just not what I thought it would be. I'm having to pack. I'm overwhelmed. I can't even go. I don't even know when I'm going to go look at property. And sadness can also show up as withdrawal. All of a sudden, they're not returning your phone calls. They're not responding to your emails or your texts or whatever your communication is. They just have kind of backed off of responding. And just keep at it, because I want you to know, oh my gosh, they might be in the sadness phase now, and I need them to just to be okay being there, but to move them along as soon as I can until they finally get to acceptance. Acceptance could be, okay, go ahead, adjust the price. I'll take that offer. Every time you bring them an offer on a property, for the most part, they could go through a lot of this, the bargaining. If you guys are doing inspections, I know a lot of the country buyers are waiving their contingencies on inspections. If they're not, in my world, they are still not doing that. So once a buyer comes up with some things they want repaired, the whole thing starts again, where they're in denial. Well, there's nothing wrong with that roof. It's absolutely fine. And, the anger, that inspector was up there and he probably broke those tiles walking around. And, so the whole thing starts again from denial to anger to bargaining to sadness to acceptance. So I just want you to be aware of these stages. Now, by the way, your buyers are going through them too, even though I mostly teach sellers, teach your agents about sellers, your buyers are really going through this when they make an offer, because they are losing out a lot on these multiple offer situations. And even when they win and they're the buyer, what we refer to as buyer's remorse is actually what could be one of these phases. But let's say I made an offer with a buyer and the buyer lost out. Well, first of all, the denial on a buyer might come when I'm asking them to write the offer. Listen, we're going to have to come in really strong. We're going to have to pay overpriced. We're going to have, our terms are going to have to be really strong, meaning we need more money in escrow. We need a quicker closing date, whatever the thing is. And they're saying, no, 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 I just want to offer this. So they're in a little bit of denial. And then when they lose out and somebody else has won the house and they didn't, they're angry. And who are they angry at? Once again, it's us. Now, here's what's scary about a buyer. If you don't have them in a buyer brokerage agreement, this is usually when a buyer will leave their real estate agent and go find another during this very short anger stage. You know, they didn't represent me, they weren't strong enough, so I'm going to go find another real estate agent. So be aware of that and be in front of it. If a buyer loses out on an offer during that conversation where you're telling them, hey, I just want to let you know that there was another offer accepted. So are you available this Saturday? Because I'm going to block Friday off to find quite a few homes. And this time we'll work even harder to get it. So meaning we won't be in denial next time and you'll do what I say. So anger is going to come up with that buyer. Bargaining, well, gee, if I have to give them that price, then I want my closing date. Sound familiar? That's a buyer in the bargaining stage. Sadness with the buyer is, oh my gosh, I'm never going to find a property. This market is just horrible. I've already sold my house. It's packed. What am I going to do? Until they get to acceptance where they say, okay, I'm just going to do what you tell me to do to get to this home. So those 5 stages of loss can be, your buyers can be going through them, your sellers can be going through them, but you know, I want you to also know that you could be going through them, because as real estate agents, or basically humans, we have experienced an incredible loss of the way we normally do our lives and our business. And so at first, denial for us as real estate agents was, well, my office closed down. Are your offices kind of still closed and you're mostly working from home? Are you going back and forth?
We're back and forth right now.
Yeah. So I also am going back and forth. I'm actually working from my office today, which I should have put a prettier background on because you're really seeing the real deal. But I also work from home, and we have very few agents actually here in the office. So things are definitely different. And so at first it was like, well, in March, if you remember, the only thing that we were worried about is getting toilet paper. We weren't looking to see, would this be this long-term thing? We were a little bit in denial, like, oh my gosh, we've got to get toilet paper or we're going to be in trouble. You know, over the next 3 or 4 weeks, we really thought it was a 3 or 4 week thing. We were in denial. Of course, nobody knew, so of course we were. Until it came to anger. For me, anger came up in a very weird way. It came up with you guys too. You probably just couldn't pinpoint it. For me, you know, all the restaurants had closed, all the hotels, everything had closed. I'm in Palm Beach County, by the way, the one that's on your news every night. That's us. The hot spot of the world. And so I live in a condo, which has a lot of rules. I live in a condo on the beach, and it has a lot of rules. It always has rules. We've adjusted to a lot of them, but now they had even more rules. Couldn't use the stairs. There were rules on the elevators, rules of when you could come and go. I live in the town of Palm Beach, on the island of Palm Beach, had all kinds of rules. Curfews like you wouldn't believe. Can't be out past 8 at night. Can't do this, can't do that. And we were hanging with them all pretty well. They closed the pool down. They did this. Oh, well. And then one day they announced they're closing the beach. Now, I'm born and raised in Palm Beach County, and I'm 50 something, six or seven, and maybe around there. And I've always had access to the beach. That's just our life here. And so they're closing the beach. I thought, oh my gosh, now our rights are being taken. By the way, there's nowhere safer to go than to the beach. How are you going to you can't get COVID-19 sitting at the beach. That's where the air is beautiful, and you're the only ones down there. And I just was so angry, ranting and raving. And my husband said to me, why are you so angry? When is the last time you went down to the beach? And I had to think, it was 3, 4, 5 months ago. We were blessed enough to have a boat, so we go on the boat and go in the ocean. We don't really go to the beach. So why was I walking around this condo ranting and raving that they closed the beach? I realized, oh my gosh, I'm just angry, and I had to pinpoint that. So anger came out in me in a very weird place, and you went through it too, probably. With another Zoom meeting. Oh my gosh, another Zoom training, really? I have to do an hour and a half? Oh my God, I just can't even look at this computer anymore. So that's good. That's a stage of anger. You're going through the loss of not being able to do training the way we normally do. Bargaining, we're all in a bargaining. Bargaining came up with my agents. I'm an OP of 2 offices, and I started getting calls from my agents about the end of April saying, Jackie, if we go into the office and we just go into my private office, I won't touch a thing, I'll wear a mask, I'll follow all the rules, I won't leave my office all day, I won't bring anybody else in, I just can't work it. Now they're bargaining with me. Now, by the way, they're acting like they don't ever have to pee all day, right? They're just going to go in their office and 8 hours later come out. It's going to be like magic. So, but they were bargaining. If I do this, can I please come in? And sadness, by the way, sadness is just coming up. All of a sudden, we're doing an amazing Zoom, and I look down, my team leaders are working super hard, and there's 30 people out of 130, actually out of both market centers. So out of, almost 400 agents, there's 40 people on. And I realized that our agents are withdrawing, and so they're now sad, and now they're on their way to acceptance. This is our new world. We've got to get on the Zooms. We've got to accept where we are. And so now we're going to keep going through this. The only good news I have about us, you guys, is that the leadership at the top at International and the leadership in your market centers didn't allow you to stay in this denial phase very long. Remember back in March, it was all about, oh my gosh, you guys, get on your calls. You're working from home, call your database, give them care calls. And you were receiving care calls from your leadership. How are you doing? How are you? So they gave us assignments right away. They didn't let us sit around in denial. And they also came out instantly with a whole training calendar live streamed from International. I know, because I was one of the ones on the very, very first week training from International. And your leadership teams turned around and waved a magic wand somehow and came out with this whole new Zoom training thing instantly. Okay, here's our training. Here's how we're doing our daily huddles. Here's how we're doing. We got, by the way, tune into James Shaw. He's every morning. All of a sudden, boom, everything changed instantly. So we were not allowed to stay in denial as KW agents. There are agents I speak to with other companies to this day that are still in denial. They have no idea what's happening. We're lucky that we made the decision to be with a company that didn't let us stay in these phases very long. We got to acceptance a lot quicker than most people. So I'm going to leave you with one more personal thought, a very powerful thought. And then if you have any questions, or you learned something today or found any value, you can either post it in the chat box or unmute yourself. Just want you to have some thoughts ready. So here's my final thought. Personal notes have always been so powerful. We know that when you send somebody in your database a personal note, or a seller that you're working with, or a past client, or a fellow real estate agent, when you send a personal note or a birthday card or anything to anybody, we know that they're very powerful. Well, now in our new world, they are so much more powerful. There are some people that really don't have a lot to do during the day, but go to their mailbox and check their mail. And so a personal note from you has 10 times the power. And we talk a lot about setting goals. What is your goals? What habits are you doing? I want to encourage you to look at this personal note thing and say, okay, I'm going to at least set a really attainable, nice goal to write, say, 3 personal notes every day, Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday. And I'm not going to put my head on the pillow until I've written these 3 notes or these 5 notes or whatever, 10 notes, whatever your goal is. And let that become a new habit of yours. Now, who do you write the notes to? It doesn't really matter to me. Yes, it could be your database. It could be past clients. It could be any seller that you're working with, any buyer that you're working with, the title, the closing companies. It could be your niece in another state. It could be your next door neighbor, a for sale by owner. It could be each other. I mean, look to the left, who's in the box next to you in the left. Write them a note. If you have kids, put one on their pillow at night. It doesn't really matter who you're writing them to. By the way, when's the last time you wrote a note to your team leader, or to your MCA, or your OP? I'm always vying for the OP. Right, or an ALC member. Thank each other. I've enjoyed working with you. Look forward to our future. Love, Melissa. Whatever your, mine are 2 sentences, by the way. I use a Sharpie pen, so it's fat. They're not these long drawn out notes, so don't read more into it than it really is. All right, so we talked about the 5 stages of loss that a seller is going through at all times. This will not end. The 5 stages of loss that a buyer might be going through, and personal notes are super, super powerful. So if you have anything you'd like to write in the chat box, we have just a few minutes. So Wendy wrote that nobody has the right to talk to you about your money. Yeah. When's the last time you talked to your dentist or your doctor or your attorney about their fees? Have you ever done that? Say, halfway through your cleaning at the dentist, have you said, I think these x-rays are really expensive. I'm going to have to ask you to rebate some of that money back to me. Does anybody do that? No, but they don't have a problem asking real estate agents. Who do you think that the fault lies with that? It's us. Our industry is known for that because we do it. So I just ignore the question and get them back on the bottom line. What are you walking away with? Nicole wants to know about the record, or Karina wants to know about the recording. I saw them recorded at the beginning. Let me see. Love the personal note showing your gratitude. Thank you, Daisy. Melissa says, thanks so much. I've enjoyed today from Juanita. Nicole says she's going to send a link out. Okay. Any other thoughts or questions or comments? I'm just so grateful that you guys once again invited me.
So Jackie, let me ask a question. When you get the bargaining stage with a seller and they ask you for a discount, you said you ignored the question. Is that usually an acceptable approach? I don't
ignore the question. I respond, but I don't start talking about money. And I don't say, a lot of real estate say, I work so hard for my money. They take it very personal. Would you like somebody coming to your work and asking you to take less money? That is really not the right response. Just say, Wendy, I'm asked that all the time. It's a legitimate question. I'd rather just focus on what you're walking away with and really work on that than and keep it focused on you. I don't want to go down that road too much. But I let them know that I understand and that I'm asked all the time because I don't want them to feel stupid for asking me. It's
Yeah.
human nature to have to ask that sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's actually more of a pause because they're about to say yes to this, whatever it is. And they're thinking, well, let me just throw a wrench in this so I can pause because it's going a little too fast. So it's really not about that money. And if you've noticed, if you've ever thrown money in a deal, they don't appreciate it. It's never appreciated. In fact, those could be some of your most miserable closings that you have. So now all of a sudden they don't really see you as a professional. That's probably what's really psychologically happening. So you want to make sure that you are always seen as a professional.
Thank you. I appreciate
So
that.
can I ask a question? So if the sellers are losing money, they bought the house at the peak of the market, and
Yes.
now we know that they cannot sell for that price or something. So in that case, they go on and on. Oh, I'll be losing this much money, and all. How can you help me with that?
So, by the way, I've had sellers show up at the table with $150,000 to sell a thing. Don't assume that they can't come up with the money. Listen, I guess there's a rare charity case. I'm not hard. Sometimes I will make a decision to help out, but it's really rare, and it probably wouldn't be in that circumstance. You know, can you afford to sell this? Can you come up with the money that's the difference? If not, can you afford to stay in the home? I'm going to try to work that out with them. I want to be a solution provider and not just come after my money, because really, is that, if I give $2,000-3,000, is that really helping? I don't know. I don't know.
Jackie, if real quick, we also had a question that some sellers are scared to sell right now because there's so little inventory, so much is unknown. Do you have any suggestions on how to get them to make a move?
Well, I would just use a couple scripts of urgency, you know, but I want you to know that there are some people that are fearful of letting people in their home, and they may have good reason for that. So you just need to stay in touch with that. However, I might say, you know, your house today, Nicole, is worth more than it ever may be worth again. And so interest rates are low. The second they start inching up, not only will you not be able to buy as much, but the buyers will start backing off. So I really think we should consider getting going now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good question. Anybody
Thank you.
else?
This was great. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you so much,
welcome.
Jackie.
11:29. How do we do?
Great. We did great. Lots of thank yous in the comments for your time and for your knowledge. Again, you know, we've seen you teach business by the book, and I love hearing you talk more about your business and, you know, how you communicate with your clients. This was really helpful.
Well, I have good news and bad news on Business by the Book. I am going to be bringing Business by the Book around the country again very soon. It's mostly based on the one thing, although it will tap into the MREA book a little. It's not going to be all day. It's going to be 3.5 hours. And guess what? Via Zoom.
Oh, great.
Live stream and via Zoom. So I will let you guys know that. Look, you know, keep an eye out. It's super affordable, so you can get a sponsor to pick it up. So we don't want to stop training just because of this. So we have accepted where we're at, and we're going to move forward. Make sense?
Yes. Looking forward to it. Please make sure we're on the list for that.
All right. Super great. All right, you guys, I love you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Get out there, sell some things. Pay attention to how your sellers are talking, because that's how you'll know how they're feeling. All right.
Thank you, Jackie.
Bye. Thank you.